Hey, what's going on guys? Nick from Confident Video here, and today is finally the review for Anime Midwest 2016. If you don't know why I'm doing the review like this, make sure to check out my post-Anime Milwaukee vlog that explains everything. Usually I have footage, and I don't, so that's why I'm sitting for one, because this is going to be a longer video, and that's why I'm also kind of filming myself doing the review as well. So without further ado, let's get on to the review of Anime Midwest 2016. So Anime Midwest is held in the Donald E. Stephens Convention Center, as well as the Hyatt Regency O'Hare in Rosemont, Illinois. This is the same place. If you are familiar with ASEN, it's held in the exact same location as ASEN. Both these venues are very large. The hotel does have a lot of space that actually most of the convention is being held in, and of course the Donald E. Stephens Convention Center is completely massive. It holds ASEN, which is almost getting up there to being one of the biggest conventions in the United States right now. It's definitely the biggest in the Midwest, and it's held so many other conventions, and it really does show why so many things go to this area, because it's such a great venue. And I really like how a lot of these conventions, especially that are varying in size, are using this convention center. So we have Con Elite, which is a relatively smaller size convention, Anime Midwest, which is more of a medium, getting towards like a larger size convention, and then of course Anime Central, which is just massive. It brings in so many people. And why I think this venue is so unique is because it really does have so much space that I even think that most of these cons are still able to grow, and all these venues are still able to expand with the convention. So there isn't going to be a point where you're running out of room for things, especially with Anime Midwest, because there's so much of the Donald E. Stephens Convention Center that they did not use. They had Exotica going on upstairs, so they had a completely other convention going on, as well as Anime Midwest, and there was still so much more room that they could have used. So I really do like the location, because it really does help with growth, natural growth, because that's going to happen with conventions when you do word-to-mouth spreading of the positive reviews like mine, and more people will naturally start coming, and I think that it's really important to have a venue that suits that. So both the hotel and the convention center staff and security were super nice to everybody. I didn't hear a single complaint from anybody, which is never heard of for a convention. Is that everybody there was so welcome. I had one bad run-in with one hotel staff member. He didn't like my free dab sign, which is in my room right now, but I'm not gonna go grab it. And I think the reasoning, because he had a problem with it and he was told by someone higher up to get rid of it, is, if you don't know, dabs is also another word for marijuana. So I think he kind of thought that I was giving away marijuana, which I wasn't. I was giving away the funny dabs, not the illegal ones. But other than that, I never had an issue. A lot of people actually did like my sign. Everyone was just genuinely happy that I was working there, to have people there, and I think that's just super cool. I really enjoy it when there's people like that are working in an area where they're genuinely happy to just see all these guests, and it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it really does bring up the vibe quite a bit. There's quite a few security guards that would just tell me, oh yeah dude, have a great day, or like hey man, give me a high five, stuff like that. It really does help. Like, if you guys don't realize, like, that helps quite a bit. So the Con Suite is probably one of the coolest ideas I've ever heard of for a convention. I haven't really heard of it at any other conventions besides the ones that are run by the same group of people that do Anime Midwest. And if you don't know what a Con Suite is, especially at Anime Midwest, there might be other cons that use that term, but in terms of Anime Midwest and Con Elite and all those other cons that utilize this, it's an area of which you can go to where you can get ramen, rice, oatmeal, chips, soda, water, anything, absolutely free at any point through the convention. And as long as you have your badge, you're able to utilize this as much as you want, and it really just ensures that you never go hungry ever. And I think that's super cool, because it kind of makes it feel like that they're looking out for the con goer, which is really nice. You're not forced to spend $7 at the hotel for a sandwich. You can go get some ramen if you're hungry for lunch or something. I do not recommend living off of this the entire weekend. Do not eat ramen the whole weekend. You will get sick very quickly. However, it's still a really cool tool. I used it a couple times throughout the weekend, and I never had an issue with anything about that. With the Con Suite itself, I will go into the area of which it was held in later in the review, but The con suite itself was really well done. They always had stuff out. They always had rice out. They always had ramen cups out. It was very well done. The only problem I had, and this I don't know if this can be helped with the convention center staff, was when I was pouring my ramen with the water boiler, it spilled on my hand a couple times and I burned my hand, which I wasn't too upset about, but I know that some people can be pretty anal about that and they would complain or even sometimes try to threaten to sue the convention. I really don't want that to happen, so maybe try to find a better way of being able to put hot water into the ramen cups and stuff like that. Outside the con suite, there are a handful of places you can walk to and eat in the area of Rosemont, Illinois, more specifically right next to the O'Hare International Airport. There's a McDonald's that's about like a 2-minute drive away. You can walk there, but it takes quite a bit. There's a fashion outlet mall 10 minutes down the road, and that has a ton of stuff that you can go and eat at. There's also a Giordano's, which I highly recommend. I highly recommend. If you've never had Giordano's pizza, I would get Giordano's pizza. It's really good. I usually don't like Chicago style pizza. I don't really consider it pizza. Fight me if you're from Chicago. I'm a New York pizza kind of guy, but it's still really good pizza. It was well worth the money, and I do recommend that. So because I picked up my badge on Thursday, I really didn't have any experiences with the registration lines on Friday and Saturday. The badge pickup for Thursday went decently fast. It was about a 15-minute wait for us, which really isn't that bad, but considered what it was to Friday, the line was super long, and that's how long people were saying that they were waiting in line for their badges. And I think this is to thank the ID scanning system that they have. I really don't know how it works. I think they just scan the back of your ID and it shows your name, and then if your badge matches the name on that, they give you your badge, and it's as simple as that. They really don't have to look up your name. They don't have to like look through a thing of badges. They print off the sticker, they put it on the plastic badge, and then they give it to you. It's a really fast process. So the ID scanning system only worked for select states. It worked for every Midwest state except Wisconsin, and then one that is like far out east. And I don't really know why this is, especially because I'm from Wisconsin, so I was kind of curious to know. I'm assuming it has nothing to do with the scanners or the ability to be able to scan these IDs. I think it has to go into the fact that the Wisconsin IDs themselves have something with them that you can't scan, and there's nothing they can really do about that. That's going to just be some sort of new technology kind of thing that they have to develop in the state of Wisconsin. The next thing I would like to talk about is the staff, and there seemed to be a definitely surplus amount of staff walking around the convention center. There would not be a moment that I would not see somebody in one of those blue Anime Midwest or animecons.org net, I don't know what the website is, t-shirt, which meant that they were staff members of the convention. There was never a point in time where I didn't see somebody wearing one of those shirts, and they were generally very nice. I didn't have any issues with anybody being rude to me from the staff. They were always happy to help. They were very nice people, and it seemed like that they were generally happy to be there. However, I did notice that there were not many staff members in front of panel rooms. At least the panels that I went to, I can't speak for everybody obviously, but the panels that I went to, there were never any staff members in front of the panel doors. There's one time where a staff member came in and checked the panelists in like they usually do, asked if they were okay, and then just left right away, which is really peculiar to me because most of the cons that I usually go to, they have staff members at every door, and I will go into badge checkpoints right after this. But even at other cons that have badge checkpoints, usually there is always a staff member in front of every single door, which to me seemed weird because they seem to have a lot of staff members walking around, but also at the same time it seemed like they didn't have enough to be putting in these panel rooms or doors to check badges. So the reason why I brought this up is because if there's not really a staff member or anything manning these panel areas, if panel locations or times change and there's no way for people to figure it out, there's no one to let people know about it. So now I would like to talk about the badge checkpoints that I experienced at Anime Midwest, and there were plenty of them. I can clearly tell that Anime Midwest is an anti-ghosting con. There are definitely some cons that I've been to that are much more lenient on this rule, and Anime Midwest is not one of those, which is totally fine. I totally support that. If you do not want people being at in your convention area that are not paying to be there, they have every right to not be there if it's an event. However, the problem that I had was the amount of badge checkpoints that they did have, And this kind of goes into what I was talking about where there were no staff members at the panel rooms. I think that their thought process is if you got into one of the panel room areas where there was several panel rooms, they didn't need a staff member checking badges in front of every single panel room, unless if it was an 18+ panel, but I wouldn't know because I really didn't go to one, because the one I went to was not actually there. And I do kind of see this as an issue almost, because you have no way of checking times for panelists. You don't have a way to kind of tell people to wrap up their panels if someone's running late, if someone's on time. Like, there's no way for a staff member to know what's going on in those panel rooms, and I find that to be a huge issue. Another thing that I found an issue with the badge checkpoints is that they were in places that were in the hotel, which is generally a public place. There were definitely people there that I talked to that were not there for the convention. There were people that were staying at the hotel that were like, hey, you know, what's going on this weekend? And I told them, oh, you know, it's an anime convention. And I would actually see people that were not part of the convention being stopped by security asking for their badges, and they were just like, we don't know what you're talking about, which to me is just, it's not necessary. If you are going through the skywalk that connects the convention center and the Hyatt, there's no reason why you need to be stopping people there. I know that they might have stopped. I stopped seeing it after like Saturday morning. I stopped seeing it. They might have kind of learned about that, but it was just kind of weird to me. Also, when my friend Marshall and I from Red Dawn Fury went to get breakfast on Saturday, we were stopped in what was the con suite, but I don't think that they should be really just checking badges just in that area. They should be more checking badges in front of the doors to the con suite, because the way that where my car was parked, it was in a spot where walking there would be the best option, and we would have to walk out in the heat for an extra 5 minutes to walk around in front of the hotel room. And Marshall didn't have his badge, so he was being harassed. So it was just kind of generally annoying to both of us because we had to be stopped. He eventually let us go, but it's still like, you can use the areas more wisely and you can check badges in better areas, in my opinion, than just a general area and then just not have any staff patrolling that area whatsoever. To me, that just seems kind of weird. I'll probably go more in depth about this in another video, but I do want to say that was probably the biggest annoyance that I had, was the amount of badge checkpoints. And I heard from a lot of other people that they were really annoyed, like someone got harassed when they were leaving, someone didn't get their badge yet, they were going to get their badge and they had to walk outside when it was really hot outside. And it's just stuff like that that just kind of just generally annoys me. Hopefully for next year that they don't have to worry about that as much. Maybe they'll have enough staff, but I don't know why they just put one staff member in front of just a ton of things instead of just individual ones in front of certain things. So, but that's kind of where I stand about that. The general consensus that I got from people about the guest list this year is that it was pretty poor, with the exception of people from Studio Trigger in Japan, as well as Zach Callison from Steven Universe. A lot of the people were either repeats from last year, or they're just completely unheard of. And I feel like there was almost a lack of industry guests. I didn't really feel like there were many voice actors, but there was a lot of musical guests, and I think there's actually too many musical guests. There was like Steam Powered Giraffe, Mega Ran, there was another band, and then there was another musician that was there as well, and that's 4 people, and that's a lot of people. And if you want to have that many people, that's fine, but it's almost, you're taking away from the guests that could possibly be there that people would be interested in. So I think the vendor hall at Anime Midwest was absolutely amazing. I didn't have a single problem with the vendor room. It was actually perfect. This is the best vendor room that I've been to since I've been going to cons. It was laid out perfectly. It had everything that you needed, that you would want to get from a vendor room. It had anime, video games, sci-fi, fantasy, board games, plushies, t-shirts, posters. It had K-pop stuff, which is really freaking cool because I really love K-pop. And it just had all these things from all these different vendors, and it was so cool. I spent probably about like 4 hours total in the vendor room at that convention, which is usually a lot for me. Usually I only go in like once or twice, but I saw myself going in more often at this convention just because there was so much that you had to try to take in. And then of course, the Artist Alley is also the biggest artist alley that I've ever seen. There were so many artists there. It was so cool to see so many people there with different styles, different things to offer, and so many kind of just different prints and buttons and all these other things that like all these people bring. They had YouTubers. They had an artist that drew YouTubers. Like there was a Filthy Frank print. They had so many good artists. They're all so talented, and so many that I actually have never seen before at a con, which is usually really refreshing to me. I do think the game room at Anime Midwest was really good. I think it was pretty well sized for the size of the convention. I do think it was in a little bit of an awkward location, but I do think that if the convention grows, they'll move it to a bigger location. It didn't seem cramped, but it was in this basement room thing in the Hyatt, and it just seemed a little awkward to me. However, I don't think that it was lacking anything that it needed. I think that it had all the consoles you needed. I think it had all of the arcade machines that you need. It had PS4s, Xbox Ones, Rock Band, any retro consoles that you could need. It had Pacino machines, which is really cool. You could actually like do how they do in Japan, which if you don't know, I'll give you a very brief summary. Gambling is illegal in Japan, but Pacino is still very prevalent there, and the way that they get away with it is that you get prizes. You redeem what you win for prizes in Japan, and they did that here. The arcade machines, it was very well diverse. There was DDR, there was retro arcade games, there were so many rhythm games there, and it was a lot of fun to go there, and it was a lot of fun to spend some time in the game room. So last, but certainly not least, I'm going to talk about the rave, and this is also the best rave that I've ever been to at a convention. It was so good. Greg Ayres and whoever he brings along with him to do raves are so amazing. They're so talented. I really want to go to another Greg Ayres rave. It was so much fun. Everything about it was just on point. Like it started on time for one, which almost never happens. Secondly, it was in a really big area. It was in the main events room, which is just ginormous. The lighting was great. The sound was amazing. It was not like Anime Midwest where the sound was a little off and then it kind of got better. It was just amazing from the start. They got the sound right away. All the DJs were amazing. There wasn't a single DJ that I saw that I really did not enjoy. And when they weren't doing DJ stuff, there was people up there to really pump you up. There was guys on mics that were telling you to, like, you know, get moving and all this, and like it was so much fun. I haven't really been to a rave where there's been somebody dedicated to hyping people, which really did, I think, help. If the next convention that I go to that has a rave, it has to top Anime Midwest rave to get a perfect score. Like, if it were to be 10 out of 10 for a rave, it'd have to beat this because this is the best rave I've ever been to. So now I'm going to go into the pros and the cons of the convention, the things that I thought really did bring it up, and the things that I also do think kind of brought it down a little bit. If you don't know how my grading works, I briefly explain it in my Anime Milwaukee review, so please do check that out because it is kind of difficult to understand how it works. So starting off with the pros of the convention, the first one obviously being the vendor room. I thought the vendor room was really amazing. The artists in there were fantastic. It was laid out perfectly, and they have room to expand, which I think is really good because there are so many vendor rooms that grow with the convention and they don't have enough room for it, and then they end up getting super cramped. And it's just really annoying walking in like an aisle space this big. There was big enough aisle spaces. Everything was perfect about it. All the vendors were there that needed to be there. I thought it was really cool that like Funimation, Sentai, Nintendo was there too, which I thought was super cool. They had all these cool guests there that just were selling so many cool different things, and I highly recommend going to the vendor room if you ever go to Anime Midwest. The next one obviously being the Con Suite, and why I think the Con Suite is a pro is because it's not really a concept that I've ever heard of at any other convention, and I think it's something that is well worth talking about because it's so unique. It really shows that they actually care about the guests, and they realize there are certain problems with conventions, and that usually is that people usually don't eat at them, and they solve that issue, and I think that's really important that they see that issue and they solve it right away, because even my friends back when I was younger, when I used to go with them in high school, they would not eat, and I would be like, you're stupid, but they didn't eat, so it's really cool that they decided to do that with the Con Suite. And then of course, the last pro, which should all be on everybody's pro list for Anime Midwest, is the rave. It was fantastic, like I just mentioned. Everything about it was super good. Please go to the Anime Midwest rave, or go to any Greg Ayres rave actually. Just if Greg Ayres is a guest and he is DJing the rave, just go because you won't be disappointed. So I'm going to talk about the cons of this convention, kind of things that I thought brought it down a little bit, And the first one being the very large amount of badge checkpoints in really awkward places. One of these being right off of an escalator when you're going in the basement, and that really slows down traffic. It's not necessary to have badge checkpoints in places like this. I know you guys have enough staff. I saw how many people were walking around the convention center that had the staff shirts on. I know you guys can get enough staff members. If you don't already, I know you guys can recruit so much more. I do expect that from you guys because whoever's running these cons knows what they're doing. And that's just that. And I know you guys can do that. Obviously, the next thing being the guest list. I thought the guest list this year was actually not that great, and I did see conventions run by the same people that were smaller that got better guests. So I don't know why they couldn't get better guests this year. I did talk about it, but I don't want to say that's the main reason why I think that happened. I do think that Studio Trigger and Zach Callison are really good polls, but I do think that you can get more people like that. I think you can get many more people like that. I know Anime Milwaukee's not that much bigger than you guys now. You guys are creeping up on that really fast with the amount of people that you get each year. And I know you can get a guest list like that. Because if Anime Milwaukee can do it, I definitely know that you guys can as well. So with that being said, I will give this convention an A-. And I do really think this con was really enjoyable. It was a con that I was really highly anticipating, and it really didn't let me down. There were a couple things obviously that brought it down a little bit, but everything was really enjoyable. And the things that really did bring me down, they annoyed me a lot, like the two major things obviously being the badge checkpoint and the guest list. They did annoy me quite a bit, but it wasn't like it ruined my whole experience. There were so many other things that they did right. That's gonna do it for this video, guys. If you did like it, make sure to hit that like button. If you are new here and you enjoyed the content that I have, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you don't know what I do other content like this or at conventions, as well as I do videos that I feel like are based around self-growth and learning. So I do teach a lot of things. I do a lot of videos talking about advanced video techniques. I recently did a podcast about my trip to Japan that I was at, and I'll be doing more videos like that in the future. So if you do like that kind of stuff, keep a lookout for it. So that's gonna do it for this video, and I will see you guys at the next convention.